Would it be ideal for South Africa to withdraw from the ICC? What are the implications of the ICC having ruled against South Africa? And why did the ICC decide not to refer the matter to the Assembly of State Parties and the UN Security Council? How does the verdict impact the High Court in Pretoria's ruling that withdrawal from the ICC would be unconstitutional? What time is it? It's question time. Khodzong and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. On Thursday, the ICC ruled that the South African government had a duty to arrest Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir when he visited the country in June 2015. Al-Bashir was attending the 25th African Union Summit in Johannesburg, and South Africa rejected the ICC's request to arrest the Sudanese leader. Al-Bashir has been charged by the ICC for alleged crimes against humanity, war crimes and genocide. The charges are linked to crimes alleged to have been committed by his forces between 2003 and 2008 in the Sudanese province of Darfur. Government says it is still studying the ruling by the pre-trial chamber of the ICC. The country was given 5 days from the day of judgment to appeal against the ruling. In March this year, the government backtracked on its intention to withdraw from the court. This after the ruling by the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria in February, which stipulated that withdrawal would be unconstitutional and invalid. The court said withdrawal had to be decided by Parliament. We are live, therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 0891104210. Our Twitter handle at Mpho Tsedu. And my guest today is Luando Qaso. She's a constitutional law expert. But before we continue with our discussion, let's take a look at what Edna Mlewa, chairperson of the ANC International Relations Subcommittee, had to say.
If at The Hague, the decision comes out saying that South Africa was wrong, that's what would necessitate more the pulling out. Because we've always said that those Rome Statute must be amended or at least be subjected to better interpretation. Because right now, if the statute does not allow a country like us to, which is, by the way, not even a host of the meeting that was sitting here, it was a meeting of AU, but not allow immunity to be given just for that meeting, for presidents like that, and hold South Africa, a country like us, responsible, and it's not amended, it means this thing is going to be repeated one day. And we do not want to see a repeat of what happened last time.
Well, that's Edna Mlewa, the chairperson of the ANC International Relations Subcommittee, and basically hinting that they would pull out. Am I correct?
I think from the ANC policy conference this past week, that's definitely the intention. It's to pull out.
But that intention had been not only expressed, but they had implemented. I mean, they had started the process to do so, only stopped by a court of law.
Yes, so following the High Court's decision regarding the process which they followed to withdraw from the ICC, they had to start the process over again. I don't know if you can recall, what happened was it was Cabinet that made the decision to withdraw. And when we ratified the Rome Statute, we also domesticated it through a statute, a domestic statute. And the question was whether can you pull out of a treaty that you've domesticated and that legislation hasn't been repealed. So there were a lot of procedural issues which necessitated the government to start again, which they did, and then they stopped that process in Parliament again. But then they expressed the intention to pull out as early as last week. So I think the intention is still there. We'll see in the next coming weeks or months if they proceed with it procedurally.
Now, would it be ideal for South Africa to pull out of the ICC?
I think what would be ideal is a strong domestic justice system, which I think we do have, but the al-Bashir judgment, I think, had effects on the rule of law and our justice system. And over and above that, what's ideal is a strong regional system in Africa, which we haven't really seen. And what would be ideal is for the ICC not to be a necessary institution to enforce compliance in terms of human rights and all the matters that it has jurisdiction over, because as you know, they have a secondary jurisdiction. The ICC only comes into play if domestically, it can be seen that the state party doesn't have the intention to do anything about the human rights violation in question. Yeah. So I think what would be ideal for me is a strong regional system. Do I have faith in that? Not really, especially seeing what our government did in relation to al-Bashir. And that when the High Court actually said, pending our final judgment on this, don't let him leave. And as we all know, what happened is that he was allowed to leave from our military base. So does that show a commitment to human rights and accountability and justice? I'm not too sure if having a regional system is suddenly going to, a strong regional system is going to change that. So I don't think it's ideal for us to leave the ICC. I understand why there is that consideration, but I think if possible, I would want to see the ICC being strengthened and having more member parties or state parties signing and ratifying the Rome Statute. Okay. Yeah.
Let's take Mike. Mike, you're in Durban. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Thank you. It's a nice program. I just want to say, first of all, I am an ANC supporter, but very disappointed supporter of the way things are being run in the country. But this particular issue, I understand that there were crimes committed in that country or whatever. But on the basis of double standards, I don't think we should respect the ICC in any way. They don't take the Palestine issue seriously. They don't take America into this thing. They don't take, Israel into this. So on that basis, I fully accept that South Africa did the correct thing.
Okay, Mike, thanks very much. And this is something that always comes up, and I don't think the ICC are doing themselves a very good PR job.
I think that's why earlier on I said instead of pulling out, what I'd like to see is strengthening of the ICC. I mean, for as long as certain countries don't have strong domestic courts, it's then important for the citizens of or the victims of human rights violations to have another recourse to another institution to protect their rights. So in that sense, I think the ICC is necessary. But then, as Mike pointed out, the fact that the US hasn't ratified the Rome Statute is one of the arguments that's used. And unfortunately, double standards in international law and inconsistencies are quite common, especially when you look at the Security Council and how things are set up. So the US, for example, has used a mechanism in the Rome Statute, the Article 98 mechanism, where you can actually go into agreements with various countries saying that you can't surrender an American to the ICC should the ICC require that surrender. So, a lot of people point to that and say then the justice then becomes quite selective if not everyone signs on to it. And then there was the perception that they are targeting Africa. So a lot of those issues have to be grappled with, and the ICC really has to view its jurisdiction through that lens and how it's perceived.
Itumeleng, you're in Pretoria. Welcome.
Thank you, for the mere fact that we are choosing Omar al-Bashir over the ICC. It is embarrassing. And then I know people will talk about double standards. I think South Africa support the ICC because of what it stands for, not of people who are there who are not doing the right thing. So this is wrong. For now, I don't believe in it. South Africa stands for world peace, and then the United Nations, that's why it created the ICC, so that there is world peace. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much there. But okay, this latest developments, what are the implications on South Africa?
I mean, a just thought of something Itumeleng said, but I'll answer your question. The latest developments basically mean we don't go to the Security Council and we don't go to the Assembly of State Parties. And this issue is not novel for the ICC. They've made a similar ruling in terms of al-Bashir, I think 11 times, if I'm correct. And in other instances, they have referred it to us. They have referred other countries that found themselves in similar positions as us to the Assembly of State Parties and to the Security Council. And 24 meetings later of the Security Council, it hasn't resolved to do anything. So there isn't really an effective enforcement mechanism, and it makes the whole process a bit toothless. One of the things that could be done is obviously the Security Council can discuss sanctions, but as I mentioned earlier, the Security Council has its own issues, and one of them is that the countries that find themselves on the Security Council have their own interest. You know, Russia and China are said to be allied to the Sudan, so I don't think anything concrete is going to come out of that. And as you know, with us, we haven't been referred to the Security Council, but we have found to not have complied because our domestic courts had dealt with the matter and had made a ruling of the matter, and they found that sufficient in terms of cooperation and accountability.
Okay. Charles, you are in Midrand. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Paul.
Yes.
But I was only one question here.
Okay.
These guys want us to surrender him to them. To ICC. Does they not have the address for this guy?
Well, they know where he is, but do you think they're going to try and go for him in Sudan?
Yeah, but does they not have the resources? They should go and collect the person themselves. Why should we be responsible for that?
So you think we must not be used to get somebody whom they can access?
All what they are trying to do, they are trying to create enmity amongst Africans.
Okay.
Because the moment we surrender that guy to them, then South Africa is going to be considered to be cooperating with ICC against the other African states.
Correct.
Tell them to go and collect this guy, and that guy does not stay in a cave. He stays at a place which does have an address. They should Google him.
Okay, Charles, thanks very much. Well,
I think what I want to add on to that is that, you know, when we ratified the statute and when we domesticated it through our own legislation, if you read the preamble as to why we believe in the ICC, I mean, we had very noble intentions. So all these obligations, we didn't go blindly into it. We knew exactly what cooperation means and what kind of position we would find ourselves in. But what's crucial here and what I want people to understand is that you can't negotiate yourself out of legal obligations. Even if principally you find yourself questioning your commitments, then there's an avenue for that. And I think that should have been started, I think as early as 2012, our government had hinted at pulling out from the ICC. That process should have actually been started way back then, and it shouldn't have come to this where we actually violated the law of our own country and our own judgment. And I think for me that's the casualty there, the breach of the rule of law, and actually proving that court orders, you know, don't mean much. And as we all know, we need public support for the law to work. We need public confidence. And if our own government is going to act in breach of what the courts say, then I'm a bit concerned.
Sipo, you are in Mamelodi. Welcome.
Yes, I'm okay, man.
Yeah.
You know, those people, they know exactly where the guy is. The guy is at Sudan. They know exactly where he is. But they want us to you know, they're causing problems between these two countries now. You see, remember now, how many troops do we have in Sudan as I'm speaking now? We've got more than 1,000 soldiers there that are operating under the United Nations. Yeah. So should we arrest that guy? What do you think those troops, what was going to happen with those troops?
But you know, Sipo, I once asked the ambassador of Sudan as to whether were there any intentions to harm the South African forces, and whether were they at any point under a lockdown, and they vehemently denied. They said there was nothing of the sort.
What was going to happen? What was going to happen? simply they're going to shoot our troops. That's simple. Those Muslims, they don't take nonsense. They shoot, they don't say no tomorrow or yesterday. They shoot. So we can't solve a very soft problem with collateral damage. We can't.
So, yeah. Sipo, thank you very much for the call. Sipo calling us from Mamelodi. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this discussion around the ICC's pronouncement, and perhaps we'll look at what does this mean to the other High Court pronouncement, really, and what are your views on the matter? 089-1104210. We shall return.
Kilimanjaro, majestic and mysterious. 27 climbers. 5,895 meters, 5 days, trekking in honor of Madiba and for underprivileged schoolgirls. In just 5 years, millions of sanitary towels have been distributed countrywide. The target to reach 2 million needy girl children by 2020.
It's time that as men, we must actually pick one sanitary pack.
We can touch one girl through this initiative.
SABC News will again be documenting the arduous expedition. The climbers have one goal in mind. To pledge support for a month's supply of sanitary pads, SMS Gillian or Tabo M to 42513. The South African team hopes to summit Uhuru, Africa's highest peak, on Madiba's birthday, July 18th.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Luando Aso. She's a constitutional law expert, so she knows everything about the law and the Constitution. Now, the High Court pronounced here, which kind of gave South Africa instructions to take your time, get this thing. If you want to do it according to the law.
Back to the drawing board. Yeah. So that started the process, as I said earlier, to withdraw, but they started it in the incorrect way in terms of the Constitution.
Okay, Luando, let me just stop you there. We've got D calling us from Namibia. Okay. D, welcome.
Yes, Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I have been struggling so many times I couldn't get through all day, man.
You got through now. It's very good to have your call from you.
Say hi to Madam with you in studio.
We'll do that. We'll do that, D.
Injured to one is injured to all.
Yes, I agree with you.
And there's no way we can allow those American countries to undermine African. There is no way we can allow those American people to undermine our Africa as a continent.
Okay.
So there is no way that we can allow Bashir to be arrested from Africa. They know the address where he came from, and they cannot just do it because he came to the AU in South Africa. That is a huge provocation.
Okay.
So we could not allow for that. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, D, calling us from Namibia there, saying he's been battling to get through, but finally did. So it seems to be a popular view. If you've got the man's address, go for him at home. But you were still making a point here.
Yes, so the withdrawal from the ICC, the government actually started it, and they don't do it according to the Constitution. So the way that you ratify a treaty in terms of the Constitution is that cabinet government negotiates the terms, but in terms of ratification, it's Parliament that binds us to the treaty. And the courts then said, if you want to undo that, you have to follow the same process. It's Parliament that has to unbind us. And in this case, we had the cabinet going ahead and withdrawing us from the ICC, and it shouldn't have been done that way. And the other thing is the statute hadn't been, the domestic statute hadn't been repealed. So how can you withdraw from a treaty if domestically the legislation is still in force? And then now you had last week's ruling saying that we didn't comply, and we have our own High Court and the Supreme Court of Appeal saying we didn't comply and we had to arrest al-Bashir. So the interesting thing is that the court order actually stays in place.
Okay.
Even if al-Bashir comes here tomorrow and we've withdrawn from the ICC, the Rome statute says whatever obligation you had before withdrawing, it actually still stands. So withdrawing is not going to undo the obligation that we have.
So one thing we're sure of is al-Bashir will never, ever...
I wouldn't put it that simply. What's going to happen? We're going to start this whole process again. Are we going to be sent to the Security Council? What's the Security Council going to do?
I'll tell you more about the Security Council just now. Moses, you are in Beckersdale.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Sipo from Mamelodi has raised an important issue.
Yes.
If you can check, what was going to happen to those soldiers who were there in al-Bashir's country? First one. Second one, everything is still white in this country, in this whole world. Why? Because Bush, how many people were killed by Bush military, military who killed a lot of people, but we not hear anything about Bush.
Yes.
Coming to this court, but they target everything. That is what I'm really disappointed about.
And Blair, actually, Tony Blair as well.
I'm the white, especially in this country. They're still following anything to Americans. What about we people? Because our people were going to be maybe in al-Bashir country.
Okay.
That was going to happen. Same story. But what is happening about Bush? How many people did he kill with his military?
Okay. Moses, thank you very much for that point. Indeed, it's a point that a lot of international commentators have been asking, including Tony Blair and all that. I mean, in other instances, even under Obama, and,
I think what's required in international law in general, not just the ICC, but how, the Security Council operates, like from the resolutions in terms of Yugoslavia and Bosnia to Iraq to Libya, and sort of the violations of the terms of that of those resolutions and those matters with NATO, intervening. I think what's needed is something I would call model law compliance by the members of the Security Council especially. So upholding the rule of law in terms of international law in every situation will garner respect for international law and compliance. For as long as you have inconsistencies and you have member states that refuse to comply in certain areas, other countries are going to ask themselves, why should they comply? So I think model law compliance is needed, especially by the US, because a lot of people, I think that the US represents a lot in terms of global affairs, and if they're allowed to escape accountability by also having the foresight of not ratifying these statutes and not finding themselves in this position, then it weakens the system as a whole.
Well, I want to take advantage of your presence here. You heard what happened, the latest developments from the Public Protector's Office?
Which ones? I feel like there's so many of them.
Today's, the latest one, that they are not going to oppose the President's application to review.
Which report?
My word, there's so many, eh? Okay, we're talking about the state of capture.
Okay, I think going to court is a good thing. It's a public domain where some of these issues can be aired out. I think there's a lot to be gained by reviewing the Public Protector's report and the Public Protector not opposing that. So I think that's a good decision, not to oppose the president and go ahead to review the report.
Okay. Yeah. By the way,
for the development of our law, I think it's always
I wanted to say that, by the way, you always argue from a legal point. You're not political.
No, I'm not political.
Okay. Yeah. All right. No, that's fine. We'll look at that from a political point soon. But thank you very much for your insight in these matters.
Thank you.
That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Hi, Bakhot.